I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to carry a secret so heavy it could shatter everything I've built. My name is Sarah, and for 30 years, my husband Tom and I have fought tooth and nail to keep our humble Ohio home, a place filled with laughter, tears, and dreams, now threatened by a mountain of debt that looms like a storm cloud over us. But when I walked into that dingy office to face the debt collectors, I had no idea I'd be forced to make a choice that would haunt me, a decision that burns in my chest every time I look into Tom's tired, trusting eyes. What did I do to save our home, and can I keep this dark truth buried before it tears us apart? Picture this: a quiet evening in a suburban Ohio neighborhood, the kind where the crickets hum louder than the traffic, and I'm standing at my kitchen window, staring out at a world that feels like it's slipping through my fingers. My name's Sarah, 58 years old, and this two-story house, our home for nearly 3 decades, has started to show its age, just like me. The paint on the outside is peeling, curling away like old skin, and inside, on the counter, there's a stack of unpaid bills that seems to grow taller every time I blink. I can't ignore them anymore, no matter how much I want to. I've been married to Tom for 30 years. He's in his early 60s now, a kind man with hands rough from years as a mechanic and eyes that carry a weariness I wish I could lift. He's been taking on extra shifts at the garage, coming home with grease under his nails and exhaustion in his bones, just to keep us from drowning. Me, I've been holding down the fort, managing the household, and picking up part-time work as a freelance bookkeeper. But it's not enough. 2 years ago, unexpected medical bills gutted our savings, and since then, the mortgage on this house, our sanctuary, has become a noose around our necks. Every month, I wonder if this will be the one where we lose it all. The debt collectors don't let me forget. Their calls are relentless, a piercing ring that sets my nerves on edge every single time. I dread picking up the phone, hearing those cold, demanding voices on the other end, reminding me of what we owe, what we can. I remember that evening so vividly, the air heavy with the weight of our struggles. Tom came home later than usual, the familiar scent of motor oil clinging to his worn-out jacket as he slumped into a chair at our old dining table, the wood scratched and faded from years of use. His eyes, those tired hazel eyes, looked like they'd seen 1,000 battles, and I could tell he was carrying more than just the ache of a long day at the garage. He rubbed his calloused hands together, the rough skin scraping softly, and looked at me with a kind of quiet desperation I hadn't seen before. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and gravelly, "I think you need to go down there. Meet with those debt collectors face to face. You've always been better with words than me. Maybe you can make them see reason." My stomach twisted at the thought. Face the people who've been hounding us with threats of foreclosure? The ones whose voices over the phone made my skin crawl with their icy demands? I wanted to say no, to tell him I couldn't do it, that I wasn't strong enough to walk into that lion's den. But as I stood there, watching the lines of worry etch deeper into his face, I knew I couldn't let him down. Not after everything he's done for us. So, with a lump in my throat, I nodded. "Okay, Tom, I'll do it. For us." The next day, I spent hours preparing, trying to steady my nerves. I pulled out my best blouse and slacks from the back of the closet, a little outdated but still crisp enough to look professional. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down my graying hair, trying to look like I had some control over this mess, even though my hands were shaking. I drove to their office downtown, a squat, nondescript building with grimy windows that seemed to match the dread pooling in my gut. My heart pounded as I walked through the door, the air inside stale and heavy, like the weight of every bad decision I'd ever made. I was ushered into a cramped room, the kind of place that smelled of cheap coffee and desperation. There they were, the 3 debt collectors I'd only known as voices over the phone. Mark sat behind a desk, his cold blue eyes scanning me up and down like I was nothing more than a puzzle to be dismantled. He had a sharp jawline, the kind that looked carved from stone, and not an ounce of warmth in his expression. Derek stood by the window, arms crossed, his face tight with something I couldn't quite read. Discomfort, maybe? He wouldn't meet my gaze, just stared out at the gray street below. And then there was Victor, looming near the door, his broad frame blocking out what little light crept through. He made the already suffocating room feel like a cage, his presence a silent threat I couldn't ignore. I took a deep breath, my voice trembling as I started to speak, laying out our situation as best I could. I told them about the medical bills, about Tom working himself to the bone, about how this house was all we had left of the life we'd built together. I pleaded for leniency, for just a little more time, my words stumbling over each other in a desperate rush. But Mark cut me off, his tone like a blade slicing through my hope. "We've heard every sob story in the book, Sarah. You're out of time. We need payment, or the house is gone." My chest tightened, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes as I pictured losing everything. Our memories, our sanctuary, the place where we'd raised our dreams. I was about to beg again when Victor's voice broke through, low and crude, sending a chill down my spine. I'm sitting in that creaky office chair, the worn leather squeaking under me as I try to hold myself together. My hands are trembling, shaking so bad I can barely keep them still in my lap. I can't look at them, Mark, Derek, or Victor. My eyes are glued to the scuffed-up floor, tracing the cracks like they might give me some kind of answer, some way out of this nightmare. My heart still hammering from what just went down, the weight of my actions pressing down on me like a boulder. I feel like I'm gonna be sick, right here in this stuffy, suffocating room. Mark's voice cuts through the silence, smooth and unnervingly calm, like we didn't just cross a line there's no coming back from. I hear the flick of a lighter, the sharp inhale as he lights a cigarette, the smoke curling into the air. "Gotta say, Sarah, I'm impressed," he drawls, each word dripping with something I can't quite name. "Didn't think you had it in you to go that far. Shows you're willing to do whatever it takes." His words twist in my gut, making my skin crawl. I want to scream, to tell him he's wrong, that I didn't have a choice, but my throat's so tight I can't get a sound out. I just sit there, frozen, drowning in the disgust and shame washing over me. Victor lets out a low chuckle from his spot by the door, the sound grating on my already frayed nerves. "Yeah, we've decided to cut you a break, sweetheart," he says, his tone mocking, like this is all some twisted game to him. I flinch at the word, my fingers curling into fists in my lap. Over by the window, Derek finally speaks, his voice barely above a mumble. "Sorry, Sarah," he mutters, but there's no real weight behind it. He doesn't step in, doesn't stop the others, just keeps staring out at nothing, like he can pretend he's not part of this. His apology feels like a slap, empty and useless after everything. The air I'm still sitting in that cramped, suffocating office, the bitter taste of shame lingering in my mouth as Mark slides a folder across the desk toward me. My hands hesitate, trembling as I reach for it, not sure I want to know what's inside after everything that's just happened. The paper feels heavy, like it's carrying the weight of every choice I've made to get to this moment. I open it, my eyes scanning the words, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. It's a deed, a legal document for a small apartment in a nearby city, fully paid off, and it's in my name. My jaw drops, my breath catching in my throat as I read it over again, thinking there must be some mistake. This can't be real. How could it be? Mark leans back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips as he watches my reaction. "Consider it a token of appreciation, Sarah," he says, his voice smooth, almost too polished. "A thank you for cooperating. This wipes out a big chunk of what you owe. You keep your house and you get this little bonus on the side." His words slither through the air, and I feel a wave of nausea hit me. A bonus? For what I've done? For the line I crossed in this very room? I'm torn in two. Relief floods through me at the thought of holding on to our home, of easing the burden on Tom, but it's drowned out by the disgust that churns in my gut. This isn't a gift. It's a transaction, a dirty reminder of what I've sacrificed. Victor steps closer, his heavy boots thudding against the floor, and I feel the air shift as he looms over me. He dangles a set of keys in front of my face, his rough, calloused hand brushing against mine as he drops them into my palm. The cold metal bites into my skin, and I flinch at the contact, my stomach turning at the memory of his presence during those dark moments. "All yours, darling," he grunts, his tone dripping with something vile that makes me want to scrub myself clean. I glance over. I'm driving home now, the hum of the engine the only sound in the heavy silence of my car. My hands grip the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles pale, as the weight of what I've done sits like a stone in my chest. Those keys to the apartment, that cold metal Victor pressed into my palm, are burning a hole in my pocket. Every mile I put between me and that grimy office feels like a lie, a distance I can't truly escape. The suburban streets of Ohio roll by, familiar and unchanged, but I feel like a different person behind this wheel, someone I don't recognize anymore. I pull into our driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires, and there it is, our house, the 2-story sanctuary Tom and I have poured our lives into. But tonight, it looks different. The peeling paint, the sagging porch, all of it feels like a facade. A hollow shell hiding the truth of what I've carried back with me. I cut the engine but don't get out. I just sit there, staring at the keys I've pulled from my pocket, turning them over in my trembling fingers. Each glint of light off the metal is a reminder of the bargain I made, the unspoken cost I paid in that suffocating room with Mark, Victor, and Derek. Do I tell Tom? Do I lay this burden at his feet and watch the trust in his eyes shatter? Or do I bury it, lock it away somewhere deep inside me, and pray it never surfaces? My mind races, but no answer comes. I'm stuck in this limbo, caught between confession and concealment. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours before I finally force myself out of the car. My legs feel like lead as I walk up to the front door, the weight of those keys now tucked back into my pocket, out of sight but never out of mind. I step inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards greeting me, and there's Tom sitting in the living room, the soft glow of the TV casting shadows across his face. He looks up, and his expression shifts. Those weary hazel eyes light up with a warmth that stabs right through me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.